This is my second term as Bremerton's Poet Laureate. We have done various events throughout. Of course, the pandemic, did away with open mics and workshops in person. There is a Facebook site called Poets of Kitsap County, and or Kitsap County Poets. I'm sorry, I always get it backwards. Where people post poems and talk to each other, and we talk about. For a while, we were doing first and third Mondays at Remedy Pub with open mics. I'm looking for a place right now where we can do open mics for people of all ages, because at Remedy, this stage is set up in the bar area, so people who are under 21 can't go there, unless they go anyway. And since I teach at OC, at Olympic College, I have a lot of Running Start students, and I teach poetry there and creative writing, so I want to be able to invite them to be able to share their poetry. I have published in some various journals and exhibits, and I used to go every year to a women's poetry retreat called Poets on the Coast, if any of you women are interested. It's held up in La Conner, always the weekend after Labor Day. And we always go over on Saturday to look at the new exhibits at the Northwest Museum of Art, and then do acrostic poetry about the art that we're looking at. So, and then they put those poems on their website, which is kind of fun. I was born and raised in the Northwest, so a lot of my poetry is based here. And I was really surprised that they picked me as Poet Laureate. The Arts Commission decided they wanted me, and the mayor appointed me. I'm working on a manuscript for a book to be published, and hopefully we'll have it finished this summer. Its basis was my manuscript for my MFA, which I did in my 50s. So it's been a wild journey. So this poem from the title, it's pretty obvious, Ukraine. The sunflower rises tall. Excuse me. The sunflower rises tall over the border, refusing the red bursts, the bomb's destruction, those protesting inside and outside. They carry seeds in the soul, hand those to their soldiers, see them planted in blood, in fear, and in courage. We watch from a distance, a superiority. We dare to evaluate the effort, our response in little more than words and dictates related to only us and hundreds. Soon, though, thousands die because they defend a democracy, reject a totalitarian, bare-chested, wannabe authoritarian who craves power for power's sake. The most recent publication is an anthology. Earlier this year, some of my work appeared here, and I'm going to read one of those poems. This is from a group of poets in Portland that I meet with online who do a workshop in a particular style called Open Gate. And so we meet. There's certain things I've actually incorporated into my classwork and readings from students. So no apology for the poem that you're writing, not anything like, well, this is just a draft. So, and then you read it, people tell you what the strengths are in it. They don't critique it as such, but talk about their own response to it. And then we go forward from there. It's a very fulfilling type of workshop. You don't end up being afraid that somebody's going to really mash you about your poetry. So this is one of those sessions, and often to begin those sessions at the Poetry Salon, the leader, the person who facilitates the group will read a newspaper article or sometimes just another poem, but often a poem by another poet. So this is Trapped. Female spider's maternal instincts captured in 99-million-year-old amber. Smithsonian Magazine, September 17, 2021. If I could have warned the mother, I would have said don't. Just don't expect that a maternal instinct will carry you on its back to fulfillment for you and the children. Unhappiness dogged your steps, snapped at your heels like the neighbor's corgi, forcing you to always try harder, run faster, to stay tight in the bubble of belief. What you should have been is not what you became, and you knew in the day-to-day living that should would never become reality, would never become celebrated as you reached your time of rest. Your anger became the danger we had to shelter against. The memories hardened like amber, trapping us, moving away, not toward. Hardened us eventually not to look back and see the silent pleading for us to give you what was not there within yourself. I don't know how many of you like Trader Joe's. I like Trader Joe's. Yeah. I just got some rosemary bread from them. That's really good. Right, Mary? Right. I love their crackers, the rosemary raisin crisps. I don't know if you've had those. Oh, I love those things. This is called Too Many. Rosemary raisin crisps will make you fat, but pair those sweet, savory crackers with goat cheese, nothing is ever the same. The female goats dance in green, tasty grass, gambol before the fence, they strain forward to be the first. With the lightest of touches, teats shoot milk into gallon glass jars. Soft, sultry cheese that makes anything better on rosemary raisin crisps becomes ambrosia. I feel the cracker crumble, the cheese coats my mouth. I am lifted, then placed in a soft, nestling place. Warm sun bathes my body. I smell the rosemary from the bush beside me. I hear the goats bleating in the background. This is a poem that I wrote the first time I ever came to OC College. I didn't know it existed, but I heard this back in the late 90s, or mid 90s, I guess. Olympic College used to put on a yearly Saturday workshop, poetry workshop, one-day workshop. And I heard about it, so I came over to Bremerton and found where Olympic College was and attended. And then out of that, they publish some poems from that as a chapbook. And my poem ended up in there. So, do you know Coyote? Jung, he knew Coyote, archetypal psychic structure of extreme antiquity. Yes, he knew. Old man Coyote reminded him of old man self. Madonna, singer, she knows Coyote, lustful and hungry, convincing the woman to lift her dress high, to chase away the bumblebee between her legs. Then she was stung. The priest knows Coyote, who did not make the world but remakes it to prepare for the people. He redeems the monsters, makes them behave, and gives themselves for the ones to come. The fools, they know Coyote, who in idle times would play with his eyes, throwing them up and catching them, who ate his eyes one time because he was starving in a stone house without a door he built around himself. We too know Coyote, always ahead, looking back with red tongue hanging from smiling chops, laughing eyes, leading us always on, sometimes to better, sometimes to worse. He laughs and frowns and tricks us all. We follow, listen to him, find in our own heart Coyote always before us. Jung, he knew Coyote. I moved to DC for about 7 years, and then I moved back after my dad had a stroke, and I often would spend weekends with him, Saturday and or Sunday. He was living in adult care, and I would take him out just driving because he liked to go out on old roads and sometimes almost impassable old roads. In Issaquah, there's a place where there's a lot of hang gliders because of the updrafts there. It's just perfect for hang gliding. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if construction has changed it or whatever. But whenever we would go out, we would pass this place where there were people hang gliding. So, taking Dad out. Each Sunday we drove away, wheels turning on the black pavement, traveled by that hillside where above us flew bright rainbows of color. Hang gliders drifting on the wind, riding a slow roller coaster, climbing hills and banking on curves of air. They never flew in the morning, no early birds, but midday, when the earth was aged with the sun, warmth grew and rose up, only to cool and return to earth, until the day slowly faded and twilight took its place. Sometimes we stopped to watch and count how many flew that day. Then we left quickly before the ride ended, while the day was still warm and bright. A few years ago, I went to a conference, anti-racism conference for faculty and students of color. And anyone could go, but it was primarily focused on anti-racism for people of color. They showed a film there called If These Halls Could Talk, and it was directed by Lee Moon Wah, W-A-H, if you want to look it up. It's a stunning movie about a conversation of a room. It's really just a recording of a conversation of a room full of students talking about racism. Mainly people of color, a couple of white students. Your guilt is not your ticket out of this room. After watching If These Halls Could Talk by Lee Moon Wah. Sorry. Circle of people, circle of eyes. Asian to African to Latina to Muslim to white American. Finally, somewhere, the conversation starts until a bit of truth, a tiny sliver, when one white man says, "I never saw you as fully human," in tears, unbelieving, but driven to a truth, and dies a bit, because finally, he realizes how others have died to themselves to accommodate him. One woman faces him. She does not forgive. She does not erase his shame. She tells him the truth. A sliver of the truth, no forgiveness here. Just the reality of his chains, trying, falling, getting up, trying again, until he does not know why he gets up again. She tells him the bitter truth. We are in a war for our humanity. And then my final one here is called Another Way to Be Faithful. When I rise, you rise. You wait, but I cannot tell if I will ever turn back toward you. I'm not sure that I even turned away. You are still here, resting with me, not quite touching. I feel the heat of your spirit. I hear the slow, steady breath. I am comforted and still restless for something else. Not more or less, but not this. The gnarled life rooted so deep no wind is strong enough. Your soft breath moves over the deep sorrow. I am stirred by the stories it tells, the promises you still keep. When I rise, you rise. Thank you. I did want to add, as I said, this will be my last year as Poet Laureate, so I'm assuming that Bremerton will appoint another. So look closely, the arts section of the Bremerton website, the Arts Commission section, and I'm sure in other places they will be advertising for a new Poet Laureate. And you could be the second. Wouldn't that be great? So you do have to live in Bremerton. That's one of the criteria. So, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I live in Bellingham, so no competition there. I'll read this one first. It's a little bit chaotic, but why is the Nash in the orchard? I ask, running in the open door and throwing my books on the sofa. I had plans for that, shouts my mother from the kitchen as my brother pushes past me, his fly rod in hand. The vacuum cord does not reach to the driveway, says my father, with a bucket and cloth, smiling. My sister pulls on work gloves. Where are the tulip bulbs? My oldest brother opens the upstairs door, net and basket carried along with his truck keys. You can't fly fish with bacon. We sat around the dinner table, eating trout and potatoes, admiring the Nash and newly turned garden. It's spring, I said. This is Walking Home, 1964. Walking past the house where my cousin gave birth to her 5 children, along the road where the pig shares his food with the starlings without complaint, listening to old man McCary in his drunken state yelling at his 10-year-old son to make something of his life, the windows steaming over. The first snowflakes fall. The red dog greets me at the front door and wants to come in by the oil heater and curl up behind it while we eat and discuss world affairs.
Thank you, Mayor.
So my name is Fred Nicholson. I live in the Kingston area, and I write when I'm walking on the trail, do little vignettes. And I've done about 200 things, and once I write something, I rarely look at it again. So I just heard about this today. I jumped in the shower, came here, and sat sitting here, decided what I was going to read. Let me also share, I have what's called an intentional tremor. So I'm not sure which hand is going to be shaking as I read this. So we'll see what happens here. It's in the left hand. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Defund the police is a silly slogan on its own. Why? When we sever a tentacle of an ongoing evil system, another tentacle is born. Rewrite a feel-good history is the goal of some of us, unwilling to share truth. Critical race theory is a code used by fearful Americans to silence any POC history. Removing texts from libraries is one way to rewrite history and dumb down a people. A black man slaps a black man and makes front page news quickly. Half of us resist a black woman justice. On this land's highest court, 233 years later. Why? By the way, POC is an acronym for people of color. So I write these while I'm actually walking on the trail in notes, and I rarely look at them again. So here we are. It's called New Day 51. Less wheat and less fertilizer coming from Ukraine and Russia, the world's major producers, means less healthy foods, and cattle prices increase for skinnier cows, pigs, and chickens not getting their fertilizer. Less wheat means Middle Eastern, African, and other countries reliant on wheat shipped from these two countries may starve to death sooner than estimated just 3 months ago. For some of us well-financed USA citizens, we will complain about higher prices and pay the increase anyway. Others of us U.S. citizens will forego paying for our type 2 diabetic medication so we can feed our children some healthy foods. European countries are knotted to Russia and cannot easily break free and let their people freeze. Do you enjoy a good beer? Russia and Ukraine export barley to brewery makers making beers worldwide. Did you know that? What happens when we can't feed the kids and buy a beer because the cost is too high? We go out and steal to feed our families. More stealing means more profit loss, means hire more police, build more prisons, and God bless the ones with money and lawyers. Someone said the Russians are creating starvation. May I suggest we North Americans are justifying the Afghanistan people starving to death? Because we refuse to release their money to the new leaders of the country we have just vacated? Leaders will rarely starve. Do you see our leaders declaring wars and then returning from them to live on the streets with other veterans? I don't. Why all the cheering for a black woman about to land on the Supreme Court in the home of the born free? By the time book burners have burnt all the books they disagree with, Ketanji Brown Jackson will be white. White folks turned black into a caricature at the door. White folks turned black into a caricature at the door, looking like a young stable boy with black skin and red lips. Collectibles. Mouthing off. The continuing mouth pain is never the same as change in a human realm is ever changing, yet observed by so few of us trusting the truth. Live and die, live and die, live and die, live to die, live to die. Don't be fooled. All is change. Be here now is when I am falling away from all the words. Bye, y'all. Thank you.
I'm not a poet. I'm one of the artists here at the gallery. I do write some poetry, but it's way too personal to share. So I brought a poem about one of my artist heroes, Claude Monet. Painter Claude Monet suffered from cataracts, making his vision blurred. And this poem is an imagined conversation between Monet and his doctor. Monet refuses the operation. Doctor, you say that there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris, and what I see is an aberration caused by old age and affliction? I tell you, it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels, to soften and blur and finally banish the edges you regret I don't see. To learn that the line I call the horizon does not exist, and sky and water so long apart are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun. And now you want to restore my youthful errors, fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, wisteria separate from the bridge it covers. What can I say to convince you? The Houses of Parliament dissolve night after night to become the fluid dream of the Thames. I will not return to a universe of objects that don't know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. The world is flux, and light becomes what it touches, becomes water, lilies on water, above and below water, becomes lilac and mauve and yellow, and white and cerulean lamps, small fists passing sunlight so quickly to one another that it would take long streaming hair inside my brush to catch it, to paint the speed of light. Our weighted shapes, these verticals, burn to mix with air and change our bones, skin, clothes to gases. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms, and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world, blue vapor without end. I share a birthday with Claude Monet, and for some reason that means a lot to me.
My name is Angela Barneman, and I am on Bainbridge Island via Chicago, via Laguna Beach, via Chicago again. I have 2 children, and one of them, my oldest, turned 16 in August. And this was a little something that I wrote for him on his birthday. This is called Man-Child. The jig is up. I have been found out. I am not goddess anymore. He flies shotgun with Helios, for he is in favor now, and I have fallen from it. To look at him is to watch smoke and ember float out from my lashes. I taste the acrid sigh of his wake on my tongue. He circles the chariot and pulls up beside me to hover in his heat and impatience. His grin is stretchy and plump, bursting with arrogant, sweet mischief. His dimpled chin, a petroglyph of a laugh I had recognized before he was born. He lay a palm on my shoulder, and I wince under the weight of it. It is too heavy, and it is too light. He crushes my ribs in embrace as if to squeeze the loss of what we once were back into my bones, but there is no room. He holds me long, his jaw perched like a bird of granite atop my crown, to reassure me, to secure for himself, that the love he sprung from has not evaporated like the water that blistered under the scorching brilliance of his rise. All around him is the thrill, the disorientation of air and light. It scoops and bends. It holds everything and nothing, stratospheres of possibility and shades of blue. He reaches for me, and my hand reminds him of what is earthly and solid. Okay, so I just want to preface the fact that the one I'm about to read has 2 profane words in it, but I promise you it's not terribly graphic and horrible, I promise. Okay. Okay. This one's called Arlington Heights, which is a suburb, just in case you're wondering, outside of Chicago. The bruises of winter's fist on the garden have faded pale yellow and mauve. Green stubble, too young to shave, stabs up through wizened soil, and children's voices tickle the spine of a breeze. On a lazy street under a shy canopy, the distant sound of a colt with a limp. Clop and slide, clop and slide. All elbows and knees, a girl on quad skates with snowy pom-poms that will be gray by end of June. Her body pushes air and stone between herself and the sour stings of shoulder blades and sharper words from the local double Dutch gang. She huffs past a core of tulip stems, their blossoms scattered across the grass, like drawn quartered Easter eggs, detritus from a recent storm. You know, the one where spring is elbowing her way in and winter snaps back, fuck you. By summer, her legs are tan, iridescent with thick down, too young to shave. Dabbed with shiny pink scars on her shins and knees, she traded 8 wheels for 2 and a long vinyl seat. She is faster now, and her way is easy. Her wheels and glance glide slowly past a teen, mapled with iodine and baby oil, preening on a rainbow lounger that has branded the flesh of her sticky back with ladders, as she pretends not to notice the boy next door, noticing her. Feet slapping against hot numbers on a driveway beckon. An impulse to join is batted away. She's grown too old, and the Sour Patch Kids will disapprove. A comrade 3 doors down smiles, a wave of welcome and relief. In her drive, she abandons Keds and Schwinn, one wheel still turning like a dog running in his sleep. She trots through the front yards to save her feet from scalding sidewalks, grateful for a neighbor's cool sprinkler to rinse the dog shit out from between her toes. 4 freeze pops later, 2 tongues and 2 sets of teeth stained factory blue. Bare thighs tattooed with ballpoint doodles of hearts, bees, flowers, and confessions of school crushes whispered into a conch shell. Dusk falls, an unwelcome surprise. Fluorescent green stars twinkle, hang in the air, lethargic and lost. They dot the echoes of an angry dog, of an angry mother. A chorus of Marco Polo and twilight cicadas vibrate in the canals of sweaty ears, never loud enough to drown the feral din behind her pane and porch light. She slides open the back door, slips into a sheet of cold. The AC chickens her skin. 18 stairs to refuge. 18 stairs and a Sony Walkman Deluxe separate her from a night replete with the flashing of red and blue lights. Each spring, every summer, I am reminded you are gone. I remember the volume you took with you when you left. And the good humor song of my nostalgia recedes to a distant tune. I shift the papery floor with a foot, open my lip to autumn's bite, and speak of an unknown season, of the absent-minded confidence of a child well-loved. But my words fall deaf on the frozen ground of winter's listening.
And the instructor, he was wonderful, Gary Copeland Lilly, and he's just, if you ever get the chance to hear him read, he's just so musical and just beautiful in his work. So I thought, right after I was able to write this really fast, right after just listening to him for an hour. So anyway, this is called One Life. I run to the river to baptize my soul, and the river cries out, this won't make you whole. So I bathe in the forest where mule deer rest, and the forest sighs, are you up to the test? Then out to the desert where oases hide, the desert rasps, my tears for you have dried. Onward to prairie land where I was raised, where warm winds hint, no need to act crazed. So I summit a mountain to ask why so much depth. The mountain counsels, count the light that's left. Then I glide to the heavens where gray geese soar, and heaven portends, you have time to do more. So out to my garden where artichokes grow to probe the loam. What more can I sow?
Thank you.
I hate that one.